Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Double Stuff podcast, where we have double the hosts, double the topics, and double the fun. And I'm Alan.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charity.
And I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alan. I did it wrong.
I thought we were going around a second time. I was like, okay, let's go.
In case you guys didn't hear the first time, I'm Alan.
One more time.
That's right. And today we're gone fishing.
Yay.
This is going to be a continuation of the outdoors that we had a few weeks ago.
Cue the Andy Griffith Show theme song.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. You guys are
I was
good.
thinking a different song.
I was going to say, I'm not sure
Nope,
I'm not sure what Dan was whistling. Alan was whistling.
Alan's got it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Let's not pain the audience that much. All right. I grew up fishing, and I love fishing. As far as an outdoor activity, I think it's a lot of fun. I mostly do sport fishing now. Do you guys know what sport fishing is?
Is that just catch and release?
Catch and release.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I feel so smart.
That's right.
There's a movie called Catch and Release.
It is.
Yeah.
Not about fishing, though.
I was
No,
gonna
it
say-
is
It's a little
not.
about fishing.
Oh, is it?
Trump
No, what
did
the-
something about
I thought it was
catch
a
and release,
romantic
too.
comedy.
It is, yeah.
It
but
wasn't
they fish.
funny
yeah.
I don't remember fishing
I
at
don't
all in
think.
that
Kevin
movie.
Smith, I think, was
Not a
the fisher
comedy.
in it. No, I'm totally. We're having our own conversation.
Oh, okay. See, I was thinking like a prisoner, like you catch him and then release him back into the.
Wow. Okay. So we
Okay.
have 4 different
Well,
opinions.
hold
what
on.
catch
Yeah,
and
okay.
release is.
We're talking about fish. We're talking about
Literal fishing.
Well,
literal fishing, grabbing a pole and putting on a lure. And I've done both. I've done live bait as well as mostly I do artificial baits, only because they last longer.
They do.
Well, yeah, because the fish would eat the bait, right? So
Not
you only get to get
not
use it
all
one
the time. Well, it depends, but yeah, and sometimes they'll eat the bait off the hook, leave
Yep,
the hook.
and then
they're
Yeah.
smart. They're getting smart.
Yeah.
I read somewhere. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember where it was. Some article that some people use gummy worms for bait.
Gummy worms.
Yeah.
Well, the
I've
fake
used
bait looks like
corn
gummy worms. Actually.
Corn?
Before, like a can of whole corn that'll catch
Like you
crappie
put a
and
can.
I knew you were
You
going
put
to
a-
say that.
You put a can on a hook.
Can't put a
Oh no! Okay.
I knew where this was
Not the
going.
whole can of corn.
I knew
You
Sarah was going
open
to
it
say this.
and put a little.
Just a whole ear floating in the water.
Why can't I catch any fish? Corn is delicious.
And you see some little trout behind with a little can opener. I've done this before.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And that's our promo clip.
Yeah, you can do that. But yeah. Have you guys ever done a lot of fishing? Dan, have you fished before?
I have when I was younger. Yes,
Yeah?
my grandpa was a big avid fisherman, and we would fish when we went back to New York on the off years. I was terrible at it, as
Yeah?
to be expected. So
Now, where would you fish? Would you like go on to a river, a pond, a lake?
it would be a river.
A puddle.
Most of the time, so there was a pond by the house, and
Yeah.
then there was a river that we go into.
The local
as
aquarium.
That is called poaching, and it is illegal.
No, that is called ingenuity.
You're bound to catch something.
You got to go where the fish are.
Yeah, exactly. They can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Plus, I can't afford a boat. What's the next best thing? A stick with a
Guys,
gummy
I caught
worm
a
in
shark.
it?
That's exactly right.
You have sharks
but
in it.
you-
Oh, okay. I'm thinking
They
like
do have sharks in
I'm
the
thinking like
aquarium.
pet store aquariums. You just see jaws in there.
But do you have fond memories of
I
fishing with
mean,
your
no. So I know that's very anticlimactic, but my grandfather was a harsh man. He was a hard man, and
Oh, so you had to do it right.
yeah, he had to kind of do it right. I mean, he was much more relaxed when we were out fishing,
Okay.
but
Getting there was a problem.
getting there, it was fun. It was also I didn't like touching the fish, so when I would catch a fish on the very rare occasion, I would be like, "Can somebody take this off the hook for me?"
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, okay, I do have one funny fishing story.
Oh,
So
good.
we used to fish at my mom's boss's house. He had like a lake behind his house and everything like that. But instead of fishing poles, we would have PVC pipe with fishing line tied to it and then a hook, and
Oh
we
my
just throw it
gosh.
out there and we throw it back. So we'd have parties there with all the people that my mom worked with and all their families and stuff like that. So we'd go down there and we'd fish, we'd goof around. And we were just, I don't know what we were doing. We were just messing around. And I went to cast my short little line.
Oh,
and I
goodness.
caught something. And it was my buddy in the cheek.
I knew this was going to end painfully.
And you said this was a funny story. So
Yeah, well, it was funny. to me.
It
was
was
funny.
It was
to
funny
him,
until you see a
so.
piece of cheek hanging on the.
Well, hey, the cheek piece is bait.
So
You caught your own bait.
it was
to
a
put
great
in the
catch.
water.
I mean, I'll tell you that. So
and then when you
wow.
released him,
Yep, biggest catch of the day. Yep,
I
but
caught
I
my
couldn't
best
take him
friend.
home.
I caught my
So-
best friend. He was about 6'3".
But yeah, that's probably the most exciting fishing story I have.
Okay. Now, and I understand kind of like where your grandfather was, because when I take my daughters out fishing, I'm the same way. I hardly can fish at all because it's, can you put the bait on the hook for me? Yeah. And then it's, can you get the fish off the hook for me? But it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. How about you guys? Do you have
We went fishing
experience?
I think once when we were little. My dad was like trying to find activities for us to do when we were younger. We went fishing once, and then the pole stayed in our garage forever. But I'm pretty sure we went out of season because I don't know when fishing season is, but it was freezing cold. I remember that. And then
we were out to catch bluegills. I think that's what they're called.
Shoot, I didn't even know we were supposed to be catching something because we didn't. But
we actually went to a bait and tackle shop.
Yeah, we had the little bait, and I remember the worms were really tiny, and they looked like the sour worms because it looked like they had the little sugar pieces on it.
Yeah,
they're little like beige looking worms. About about an inch, 2 inches tall.
They just look like really
like a mealworm, maybe.
I have no idea.
They just look like really big maggots.
Yeah, that sounds like bluegill.
Yeah,
bluegill will eat that.
We didn't catch anything, and I was just confused as to what we were supposed to do. And so every time I tried to do something, he's like, no, we'll do it this way. And then he basically did it for me. So I didn't really do any fishing. My dad showed me how to do it by him doing it, and I just held the pole after he got it in the water. So I was just standing there.
Yeah, freezing. we did just kind of stand there like, so this is... And
so this is fishing, hey Dad? This is great.
Well, this is what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I think we also did kites that day, which was a lot more rewarding because you didn't have to throw the kite in the water.
Right?
Yeah. We attached the fish to the kite, and we caught birds that way.
And then some giant fish leapt up about 500 feet in the air, caught the kite.
I do remember our kite though was a purple Mickey Mouse kite, which is interesting because Alan's wearing a purple shirt with Mickey Mouse on it.
Yeah. But he's not wearing our kite though. So
no, Alan's not flying in the air.
Bringing it back around, and with the kite fishing and things like that, that kind of ties into where I want to go with this, because growing up in the Midwest, my father and I had we have a close bond and close relationship with fishing, and we would fish primarily for largemouth bass. Every once in a while, and still do, a crappie will hop on the hook, or a bluegill will hop on the hook. But when I was growing up, fishing was Bill Dance. Do you guys know anything about Bill Dance Outdoors?
Oh, that TV show?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It used to come on every Saturday afternoon at around 4 p.m. At least in Indiana it did.
Oh, I missed this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
the fact I gave that information and I was a little kid watching this.
Yeah.
Like
means
single
that there
digit
was nothing else on TV.
I will say all the children's programming had already played, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll watch.
Well, and the magical thing about watching Bill Dance, this Texan, navigating the waters of the Midwest, pardon me, is that through the magic of editing, which of course I didn't know at the time, just about every cast was a catch, you know?
Yes.
And so you think, this is awesome. This looks like a lot of fun.
This is how fishing works.
This is how it works. And then you go out, and then the experience is like what you guys, it's not sunny. It's not, we're not on a brand new bass boat, we're not using the coolest lures, and we're certainly not catching fish all the time. So, but as the years have gone on, sort of the I guess the popularity of that style of show has kind of diminished. But now we're inundated with like river monsters, with like noodle fishermen that catch big catfish. And
you talking about like when they go out and they stick their arm in the water and let the catfish grab on? Yeah, that's weird.
And then there's like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it was the deadliest catch.
Yeah, deadliest catch. That was crab fishing?
Crab fishing in Alaska.
Yeah, in Alaska, yeah.
Well, and then wicked tuna and things like that. So like the excitement of fishing, but it's more commercial fishing. And
it's more extreme versus we're going to have a fun day on the boat fishing.
Yes, yeah. And those shows,
you can only do so much with those shows.
The drama's built up because there's money involved. This is people's livelihoods, whereas we got Bill Dance just kind of going out there. Let's have some fishing. Let's have some fun. And that's pretty much what I do is when I'm fishing.
Hey, maybe the time is ripe then for a show like that. I mean, everybody loves Bob Ross because it's kind of chill and it's very easy. Mm-hmm. Maybe a fishing show that's just about like, we're just going to go sit on the lake and have pretty cinematography. Maybe there's room for that.
There is room, and it's occupied kind of in sort of the niche that we're in, which is there's a lot of YouTube channels with all kinds of different, industries, fishing and whatnot. And a really popular shout out to Marlene Baits. It's a guy, his name's Nate Marlene, and his YouTube channel, he makes baits and then goes out and fishes with them. And it's from, you see the process all the way from just him thinking about what the challenge is going to be. Is this going to be kind of like what you guys are talking about, like a little worm, a little soft bait, or is this going to be like a hard bait that, has a lot of hooks on it?
So the main premise of the show is about the bait, and then fishing's an afterthought?
Yeah, for this particular one, I've seen several others that challenge each other for like most catches or most different types of species. Yeah, you go out to like a pond and fish for different species. So like what you guys were talking about, a bluegill, and then bass and crappie. They're all kind of in this. Well, they are in the same sunfish family, so they all kind of lump together. But then there's catfish, which I've never ever been a fan of. Mainly because to catch catfish, you pretty much throw out your line and then you just wait.
Well, that's what fishing is.
I was going to say, isn't that fishing as a whole?
Yeah.
No. The way,
okay, apparently fishing's more complicated than I thought.
Well, not complicated, but I like it's more active for me because I'm a shore fisherman. I just walk.
So you're a shore thing of catching fish, right?
Yeah. Well, most of the big predatory fish, well, all fish are predators. They're all carnivores, but for the largemouth that I'm always looking for, they'll come up to the bank because that's where a lot of the little fish are that they'll be eating, the shad, the minnows, and things like that. So if you fish the bank and just walk around, you can get quite a lot of fish.
So it sounds like that there's already YouTube channels that are kind of doing that. So maybe you can then move into podcast fishing show. Where it's
you're suggesting that this is an option? No.
It's like ASMR, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, fishing is like what your grandfather experienced. Fishing for me is just relaxing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not. I would never want it to be work or anything like that. So, but I do catch and release, like you were talking about, Charity. And before I release it, I always take a picture.
Have you ever caught and brought home and eaten?
Yes, I have. So to clean a fish is
here we go.
Yeah, it's a process.
I know,
and it's not super fun, especially when you don't know what you're about. But you want to eat fish. You like the way that fish tastes. You just caught a fish, so naturally you want to eat it. And it could be pretty traumatic. In fact, I knew this, and when my daughters, when I wanted to get them into fishing, we were walking through Academy, getting their poles, their first fishing poles, and I said, "No, girls, if we catch a fish, do you want to eat it?" And they're like, "Yeah, we want to eat it." And I said, "Okay, then we need to get that knife, that fillet knife." They're like, "What's that for?" And I said, "Well." And I raised my arm.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you got to take the knife, and right about the armpit, you just kind of cut in, and then we eat the side of the fish. And they said, no, we're not doing that.
Dad, we're not doing that.
And I said, okay, then we're catch and release, and that's what we've been.
Here's the funny thing you say that is, I can't say it's a fishing story. It's a fish story.
Okay.
Because in science class, when you're taking biology and you're having to learn how to dissect and stuff.
Sure.
One of the things that we did dissect was a fish in class.
I never did the fish.
Yeah.
I did everything else.
That was, I actually enjoyed doing that. Like, I didn't really like doing the dissecting of other animals, but for some reason the fish, I understood. That's one of the things I actually understood in science. I understood, how to cut
how
it.
A fish works.
I guess so.
I think a lot of people.
But that was pretty easy going, and everybody else was getting all squeamish with it. I was cool with the fish. Like I said, the other animals I didn't like.
I've heard that before, and I kind of have the same experience with like a fish. The eyes are kind of, they call it dead eyes or whatnot. It's almost like
it's the same thing birds have.
Yeah. It's not like for hunters that you have to overcome, like you're killing another animal. But with a fish, people seem to be like, it's a fish.
It's a fish.
There's no emotional attachment to a fish. Right.
Well, that, and I was like, like what Jerry's saying, when we went fishing, we never caught a fish. But I guess in science class, I'm like, that's what holding a fish is like. I had to wait until it was halfway dipped in formaldehyde.
To
be like, Apparently, I'm living out something that all fishermen deal with: fish and formaldehyde, halfway dissected.
Well, and fish aren't as bloody, right? Like when you cut them open.
It probably depends on the fish.
A lot of the blood is held in their gills too. So if you accidentally, what's called gilling a fish, where the hook doesn't get in the lip or the cheek, and you can gill them, it could be pretty bloody and it's not fun. And at that point, you pretty much have to take the fish because
there's no releasing it because it's just going to be a dead fish in the pond.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's turtles in there that will take care of it. Yeah. So I
Sorry,
mean, it's all.
I know it's a DoorDash for turtles. Yeah. You're just delivering.
I know. Nobody can see this because it's audio, but I'm just cracking up laughing at Dan's face.
I'm thinking
the vegan of the group is not happy.
But I'm also thinking of Arrested Development. If like you take the fish, you're like return from whence you came. You just chuck it out into the water.
Which is the worst way to put a fish back into the water. You want to lay it into the water. I mean, it's one thing to be ripped out of the environment that you're in, like in an alien abduction, and then just hurled back in. It's another thing to be gently released back.
I'll tell you what, though, that fish will learn its lesson at least.
That's right. I ain't never gonna eat.
Just
that.
Swims up like shaking. You know, like the fish like Bob, you'll never believe what happened.
The things I've seen. Oh,
I just wanted the worm. I was just hungry.
No, it's exactly. Just the best thing. Actually, one of the best things about the podcast, I love seeing everybody's reactions to whatever is being talked about, whether it's high concern or sheer sarcasm. It's great. So
I was just thinking, like, I have nothing to add to this conversation when you were talking about that. Because I was like, I never was really good at even catching fish when I did eat fish.
Sure.
I will say I do have a personal fishing story that ends terribly funny, tragic.
You talking about our goldfish again?
No, the other one? Actually, no. We're gonna go before you were even born.
Sarah, with the hook over the goldfish bowl.
I caught it.
Oh, I know this story. Okay, yeah, I was not here for this.
Okay,
Go ahead, Sarah.
This is BC before charity. Okay. So I was about 3 years old. we still lived in Indiana at the time, specifically a city called Michigan City. It's a city literally on the edge of Lake Michigan in Indiana. And so my dad was like, I had a little like Fisher Price kind of fishing thing. So I'm like, let's go catch a fish. Because what else do 3-year-olds do? So we went over to the beach, where fishes come from. And so them beach fish. So me and my dad are walking along the beach, along the shore, and I'm just, throwing the thing into the water. And I'm like, there's no fish coming out of it. There's no fish coming out. So, I'm walking along. We see I think it was a goldfish, a little tiny goldfish that was just kind of little movement in the sand. It was still keeping somewhat down because the tide, maybe the tide washed it in. So we're like, I caught a fish, So my dad was like, okay, we gotta, so he's like, okay, we'll put it somewhere, we can bring it home. So not too far from the beach was where my dad worked. So he picked up the fish. I don't remember what he kept it in. Like he probably found some kind of cup or litter or something.
I was gonna say you can't just carry the fish home.
Put it in your pocket. Hang in there, buddy.
Save it for there.
So we go to where he used to work. I think he found some glass jar. I think actually was an actual goldfish bowl at the office. Filled it with water. We brought it home. Put the fish in the tank, and I'm just all excited. Like not only did I catch a fish, but I have a new friend.
I think y'all know where this story's going.
So my 3-year-old mind, I'm looking at the fish. I'm like, that poor fish. He's already laughing. That poor fish has got to be so cold, and he's got to be tired and sleepy. And so I take the fish out of the fish bowl, wrap it up in a blanket, and I sing it to sleep.
Literally.
And he slept. He's probably still sleeping to this day.
This fish is still asleep.
Because I came up, my mom was like, what are you doing? I'm like, he was tired. So she picks up the fish, puts it back in the fish bowl, and like the next day it was already floating up to the top. And so
thus ends the sad story of Goldie in Michigan City.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. Like, I was sad about it, but I wasn't like heartbroken. I was like,
because no one has personal attachments to a fish.
Yeah, we have had a lot of pet fish that have come and gone and have been eaten by other fish in the aquarium.
Yeah,
generally
no kidding.
tougher when you can't snuggle.
Yeah, it's true.
With your animals.
It's hard to
Attachment.
snuggle with a goldfish.
Well, not only that, but when you realize that when you have, let's say you have 3 or 4 fish and you're like all hyped up, and then you realize one of them is a murderer because all 3 of them are the 3 others are gone. I'm like, oh man.
Yep, that's what happened to our goldfish. We didn't know when it comes to getting goldfish, you're not supposed to get like so many.
Because our tank was kind of small. We had like 6 fish.
We had like, and then we come back from school. And we're like.
We learned how to count. We learned how to count down. It's like, wait a minute.
Subtraction.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I thought we had 6.
And then we come back. We're like, wait, there's 4. Like,
1, 2, 3, 4. I thought we had 5.
1, 2, 2 fishes.
Then we just had a tank and no fish, and we were just like, Then my mom had flushed the other one down the toilet because he was a big, fat, greedy fish. They ate all the other ones.
He ate all the other ones.
He ate himself to death.
He did. And I remember that was such a weird
of fish. They're gonna be only one.
I guess so.
I must admit, like even at that age, I think I was just cracking up because I'm like, what the heck? They ate each other.
Yeah. Well, I never had fish as pets, but
just as dinner, right?
As dinner, and like I said, my father and I, we would go fishing a lot. I was a member of the Bass Association, Bass Anglers Sportsman Society, BASS.
I'm sorry. Wait.
too many
Bass
letters.
Is the first
is the acronym
in the acronym
bass?
of bass?
No, it's just an no. Bass is the name of a fish, but
Right.
then
No, I know that.
there's
But the
an
letter B,
organization.
right. But the letter B in bass stands for bass.
Yes, so it's Bass Angler Sportsman. So I didn't put a lot of thought into this.
Again, guys.
That's what it was.
No, I
Yeah.
like it.
Again, guys, if you can see the look on Dan's face.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking, I was like, that's unique. I wonder how many other acronyms are like that.
And I had a patch, and then I got I remember this. It was there was a company called Water Gremlin, and my dad signed me up, or somehow I got like a little fishing bag, and not like a tackle box like you would see like a toolbox or something like that, but it was just like this little canvas bag, and I loved it. I thought that was really cool, and we had a lot of good memories out on the water.
I don't think about, so you asked about fishing earlier, and I always think about like, rod, reel, like that kind of fishing. But when I was younger, we went to Maine one time, and it was for my aunt's wedding, and we were going to have lobster. But we went and caught lobster. Has anybody ever went lobstering before?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So in the Keys, in the Florida Keys.
In the Florida Keys, okay.
You're going to be able to
That's
do
true, yeah. So, and I don't know if there's different ways of doing it, but what they would do is they would take like a box, like a crate, like a trap basically, and they would sink it to the bottom with a buoy sticking up out of the water.
Right.
And then what we would do is we would go by in the boat at a pretty quick pace, and my job was to reach out and grab the buoy.
Barehanded? Not with a hook?
No, just barehanded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we would go, and I'd grab the buoy, and I didn't realize, I thought it was just going to come right up out of the water. Oh, no. Those things get buried in the mud. So I get like, yanked backward and almost out of the back of the boat. And, pull it up, and there's a couple lobsters sitting in a little cage or whatever. We ended up eating them for, which
I was going to say, do you catch and release lobsters too? Or is
No,
that
you
just
don't really catch
reserved
No,
for
I think it's...
Yes, you do.
You do?
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
well, you throw
there's a
back the
link.
little ones.
Yes.
That way they can grow to be
that's
big
right.
lobsters.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's true.
Or
I learned that from
or
watching
at least
PBS, actually.
in Florida. So I didn't know if were you done with that story?
Yeah, it wasn't really much of a story. It was just, I always think it was one thing I thought of when you talk about fishing.
Yeah, because there are different types of fishing.
Yeah,
absolutely. When I was in, one of the high points of my 15th year of life was to go to a Boy Scout high adventure camp in Key Largo, Florida. I don't know. Is Key Largo a part? I guess it would be a part of Florida. Is
Probably.
the Keys?
are a
according
part of
to the Beach
okay.
Boys song, it is.
That's true. All right.
Reliable
I don't know if it was Key Largo, but we were in the Florida Keys, and it's a scuba diving high adventure. So you have to be certified, and you have to have all the certifications, the credentials, the training to be able to scuba dive. And so we went scuba diving in the Florida Keys in the coral reefs, and it is beautiful.
I do want to do that. That sounds like fun.
It's so beautiful. It's one of the highlights of one of my highlights of life. And while we were there, it was what's called bug season, where you could go lobster fishing, and they give you a rod called a tickle stick, And most of it's white
okay.
with a little bit of red. And that red is the marker to measure the tail.
Okay.
Yeah. And they give you a net. So they get a tickle stick and a net. You go down and you go through the coral reefs looking for lobsters and scooping them up. And if you catch one and it measures and it's not pregnant, so if it has like orange like jello underneath its tail, that's the spawn, the eggs, and you have to let it go.
I'm learning so much in this episode.
Yeah, learning how to tickle lobsters. Yeah. So that's,
and then
special.
we would take the lobsters that were legal and we went up to the boat, threw it in a bucket of ice, went down to catch some more if we wanted to. And whatever we caught, threw it in a bucket of ice, went back to the dock where there was a grill set up.
So you had them like fresh.
We had the tails, split them open with butter, and just right then and there, and it was wonderful. So with that, it's a lot of fun. There's all kinds of fishing, and I highly endorse the sport, whatever form you might find in your area. And thanks for having this conversation.
No, this is I've been well educated.
Very good. Mission accomplished. Or let me say,
Mission accomplished.
Oh, fishing.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that because I was going to say gotcha hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, hey, they both work. They both work.
But don't worry, don't get discouraged because there's plenty of fish in the sea.
Oh, that's true.
Sarah had to one up you there.
Yeah. And we got topics that fill up the barrel.
No, that doesn't work.
Swing and a miss.
we should have just stopped with the other one.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. You can find other episodes on doublestuffpod.com or on your favorite podcast apps. You can also participate in the fun on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Double Stuff Podcast and on Twitter at Double Stuff P, as in the letter P.